Hi, this is Rickford Burke from CGID. I wanted to have a conversation with you, every Guyanese, about a few matters that are current in Guyana or matters of currency in Guyana. One of them pertains to me. Last Sunday, the Guyana Chronicle published an article attacking me for receiving a court judgment of $7 million against the Guyana Chronicle for libel and defaming me. That article alleged that the former AAP and UFC coalition government had created many liabilities and losses for the Guyana Chronicle. And they referenced the case, my lawsuit, as one of them. That's a lie. This liability was created by the PPP government under the presidency of Donald Ramotar. And these are the facts. In 2012, I just completed my duties with the Obama campaign, and I was actually returning to Washington when two overzealous NYPD officers pulled me over for absolutely no reason. They asked me for my driver's license. I presented it to them. They claimed it was suspended, and they issued me with a summons for driving with a suspended license. My license was not suspended. Actually, what happened is in 2002, I was involved in a carjacking. I was actually carjacked from my SUV. During that ordeal, I was shot. My wallet was stolen with my identification documents, particularly my driver's license and my green card were stolen. Unbeknown to me, those documents were sold, and people were driving with my driver's license and under my identity. Prior to that, the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles had actually rescinded that stolen license and issued me with a new license with a new number. The police officer didn't bother to check to see which license they had. They just, I guess, typed in my name and saw that my license was probably suspended or revoked in my name, and actually proceeded to cite me for that. They were later disciplined because, as I said before, my license was not suspended. When this information was entered into the court system, a PPP lawyer, a supporter over here, a PPP supporter in New York, who is an attorney, saw this information in the court system and forwarded it to the office of the president. I guess, obviously, there was talk that I was an enemy of the PPP. So he sent this information, probably as some sort of opposition research, to the office of the president. At the time, as I said before, that president was Donald Ramotar. Working with Donald Ramotar as the press liaison in the office of the president was that despicable character, Kwame McCoy. Kwame McCoy, based on court testimony, concocted a story that said I was arrested in New York for identity theft, and that I had stolen somebody's credit card and bought my Range Rover, and that I was arrested for identity theft and was facing 7 years jail. That information was then disseminated to PPP media. Of course, again, this is in 2012 when they were in power, as well as government media. Altogether, 8 media entities connected with the PPP, including the Guyana Chronicle and NCN, published that fake story. My attorney, Mr. Nigel Hughes, wrote all of them and let them know that the story was false and that they had slandered and defamed me. Realizing that that story was false, the Guyana Chronicle and NCN acknowledged that they had defamed me and that the story was false. They retracted that story and apologized. My attorney then filed 3 separate lawsuits encompassing all 8 of those media agencies. The first lawsuit involved the Guyana Chronicle and NCN. I should note that when we filed that lawsuit in 2012, the Chief Justice acting at the time was Eon Chan. Eon Chan, as Chief Justice, blocked that lawsuit all the way to when the PPP was voted out of office and when he retired. The lawsuit came up for a hearing in the High Court, in the Supreme Court of Guyana, in 2018. At the time this lawsuit came up, the attorneys for the Guyana Chronicle and NCN acknowledged they had no defense. Of course, they were faced with the fact that both entities had acknowledged that the story was false, had acknowledged that they libeled and defamed and slandered me, and they recommended that this lawsuit be settled. We were amenable to a settlement, and my attorney entered into discussions with the attorneys for these other parties, including the Guyana Chronicle and the NCN. They arrived at an agreement that I should be awarded the cost of $7 million. That agreement was presented to the court, and that became the order of the court. And they were ordered to pay me $7 million. That payment was made. I received that money. The PPP now is complaining, now they've gotten back in office, that I received that money. Well, you see, I'm African Guyanese. I'm black. They don't believe that black people who are owed by the state should be paid. They don't even believe that we should own land and property in Guyana. They think that we're second-class citizens. They think that this is the age of slavery, when they could promote some sort of ethnic supremacy and make us second-class citizens. But we're not going to allow that to happen. So they came up with some nonsense, which they published in the newspaper last Sunday, claiming that the APNU paid out that money to me, and later on the Chief Justice dismissed that case. Have you ever heard of any such nonsense? How can a lawsuit that was settled be subsequently dismissed? So it's a lie. They're lying to you. And if they had checked with an attorney, they would have been advised that a lawsuit that was settled cannot be dismissed. The fact is that I won that lawsuit. The court awarded me $7 million, which they agreed to pay, and in fact paid me. What they were talking about is a second of 3 lawsuits that were filed all together, as I mentioned before. The second lawsuit involved the Guyana Times and 2 other major entities in Berbice that also published the fake story. After trial, the Chief Justice claimed that I did not establish that I was defamed. Well, the judgment was again misguided, as so many other judgments by this Chief Justice. The Guyana Times acknowledged that they did publish the article. And of course, the article was false, absolutely false. But the Chief Justice, in whatever wisdom she has, claimed in her ruling that I did not establish that I was defamed. That matter was appealed. I actually believe that the Chief Justice was biased, and it is that approach that she took to my case. Obviously, I would have been very critical of her judgments in the election-related cases, which were all misguided, and as far as I'm concerned, contrary to established law. There's another lawsuit also that is currently sub judice or pending in the courts, and that's a lawsuit against Kwame McCoy himself and Channel 69, which is the channel that the PPP broadcasts most of its content through. That lawsuit is current in the courts, so I wouldn't want to comment on it, but it's a $50 million lawsuit. And I'm confident that we're going to win that lawsuit because all of the other parties acknowledge that Kwame McCoy did disseminate that information, and he himself went on to Channel 69 and repeated that false, slanderous information. And in fact, while he was doing that simultaneously or some point in time thereafter, NCN also admitted that they broadcast that information. Look, the point is that the PPP believe that they can dominate all the information and political space in Guyana. We in CGID would not allow them to do that. I will not allow them to defame me or smear me. We've put out a press statement, and that's why I'm now putting out this video to refute all the lies that they have said. As you know, the PPP is the most violently racist and oppressive, brutally oppressive, anti-black political institution in the Western Hemisphere. They do not believe in democracy. They believe that African Guyanese and coalition supporters, whether they're Indians or Amerindians or black, should not have any participation in the economic, political, and social welfare of Guyana. We must stand up and fight that. What they want to do is institute a one-party state in Guyana and promote their supporters as some sort of ethnic supremacists in the country. We cannot allow that to happen. As you know, they have attacked GCOM, African Guyanese GCOM workers, African Guyanese attorneys, African Guyanese CEOs, African Guyanese politicians from the APNU AFC coalition. They are racist. These people are racist. Guyana belongs to all of us. In this country, we saw what happened last summer in the middle of a pandemic when we stood up right here against police brutality and racial injustice. The young people in this country almost tore this country apart to ensure that there's racial justice and equality. And within a week, we saw results. Laws promoting racial equality and equality, social justice, were enacted all across this country. Guyana needs a revolution, and they should be inspired by the young people of this country, of the United States, who stood up last summer and fought for racial justice and equality. We are the indomitable descendants of our ancestors who were slaves. Our ancestors stood up and fought slave owners, brutal imperialists and colonialists, and won. We are descendants. We could do the same thing. We should not allow the PPP to dominate our country. We should not allow the PPP to try to enslave us and make us second-class citizens. All of Guyana needs to stand up. Even if you have to come out onto the streets and protest and shut Guyana down, it must happen. Guyana, this is the 21st century. We cannot allow the PPP to take us back into slavery. We cannot allow the PPP to treat blacks in Guyana like the racist apartheid system in South Africa treated the black people in South Africa. We would have none of it in our country. And I'm asking all of you guys to focus on the racism that the PPP has been trying to impose in our country. They want to build an ethnocracy where they can use all of the resources of our state, all of the national patrimony for the sole benefit of their ethnic supporters. That must not happen. Guyana belongs to all of us. We must have justice under law, we must have equality, and there must also be social justice and equity. That's what we must fight for. And I want to encourage all of us to stand up and fight racism. Thank you.